The table was set, but the atmosphere was anything but inviting. As I glanced at the family dinner table, adorned with mismatched plates and half-hearted decorations, a heavy silence loomed over us. My gaze fell on Clara, who sat across from me, her expression a mask of indifference. I could feel the tension in the air, thick like fog, and it gnawed at my insides. "What time are we having dinner tonight?" I asked, my voice wavering slightly, hoping for a hint of warmth in her response. Instead, she shrugged dismissively, her eyes focused on her phone. "Oh, we had it yesterday," she replied, her tone lacking any semblance of concern. The words hit me like a slap, reverberating in my mind. Yesterday, had I really lost track of time, or was this a sign of something deeper? I remembered the baby shower last week, the gift that had stirred emotions I thought I had buried. The scent of fresh flowers still lingered in the air, a bittersweet reminder of what was supposed to be a joyful occasion. Clara had barely acknowledged the gift. Her laughter felt forced, awkward, as if she were trying to mask her discomfort. I had brushed it off then, but now it seemed to resonate with the weight of our current disconnect. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion, questioning everything I thought I knew about my daughter. Why was she so dismissive? What had happened to the bond we once shared? I could see her scrolling through social media, the glow of the screen illuminating her face, but it felt like she was a million miles away. My heart ached at the thought of losing her, as if I were grasping at smoke. I wanted to reach out, to pull her back into the warmth of our family, but the distance between us felt insurmountable. "Clara, can we talk about this?" I ventured, my voice barely above a whisper, hoping to bridge the gap. She rolled her eyes, a gesture so familiar it cut deeper than any words. "About what?" she retorted, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the frustration was palpable. This was not how I envisioned our family dinners. As I looked at her, I realized that this was more than just a dinner plan, it was a reflection of our fractured relationship. The air crackled with unspoken words, and I knew that if we didn't address this growing chasm, it could swallow us whole. I had to find a way to reconnect, but every attempt seemed to push her further away. The dinner table, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a battleground, and I was losing ground with each passing moment. My mind raced with thoughts of what to say next, but all I could feel was the weight of her indifference, hanging between us like a dark cloud. The living room felt suffocating, the walls closing in as I paced back and forth, my heart racing with frustration. A broken vase lay at my feet, remnants of a family dinner gone awry, shards glinting like unspoken words in the dim light. I could still hear Clara's dismissive laughter echoing in my mind, the way she brushed off my concerns as if they were nothing more than dust to be swept away. It stung, that indifference, a reminder of the growing chasm between us. I glanced at the photos on the wall, snapshots of happier times where smiles were genuine and laughter felt real. Those moments seemed like a lifetime ago, replaced now by a facade of normalcy that was crumbling before my eyes. "Why can't you just talk to me?" I pleaded, my voice rising in desperation. Clara leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, her expression a mix of defiance and reluctance. "You wouldn't understand anyway," she shot back, her tone dripping with sarcasm that cut deeper than any knife. I could feel my frustration bubbling over, a volcano ready to erupt. "Try me," I demanded, wanting nothing more than to bridge the gap, to dive into the depths of her mind and pull out the truth. But she stood there, a fortress I couldn't penetrate, her walls fortified by years of misunderstandings. "You always think you know everything, Mom," Clara snapped, her voice quivering with anger. It was a familiar refrain, one I had heard too often, yet it still pierced my heart. My own defensiveness rose, but I fought to remain calm, to find the right words that would resonate with her. "I'm not trying to control you, I just want to understand. What happened to us?" Her silence was deafening, a heavy weight that pressed down on my chest. I felt a lump forming in my throat, the emotions threatening to spill over. In that moment I realized how far we had drifted, how the love that once connected us was now tangled in resentment and secrecy. I needed her to see that my intentions were pure, yet she remained stubbornly distant, her eyes betraying a flicker of hurt before she masked it with indifference. As I turned away, the tears threatened to escape, but I swallowed hard, refusing to let them fall. I felt the walls closing in tighter, the air thick with unresolved tension. "I just want to help you, Clara," I whispered, my voice barely above a murmur. But the distance between us felt insurmountable, a chasm filled with unspoken fears and doubts that neither of us was willing to bridge. The argument that had erupted moments before lingered in the air, heavy and unyielding, a stark reminder of our fractured bond. The tension in our home had become a tangible entity, weaving itself into the very fabric of our daily lives. After the dinner debacle, I found myself retreating to my private space, the one area where I could attempt to gather my scattered thoughts. The familiar scent of lavender filled the room, its calming essence a stark contrast to the chaos brewing in my heart. I stared at the empty chair across from me, a silent witness to the rift that had widened between Clara and me. My fingers brushed against the smooth surface of the table, tracing the grain as if searching for answers in its texture. The echoes of Clara's voice from earlier still hung in the air, laced with defiance and hurt. I remembered her crossed arms, her eyes narrowed, as she spat out words that cut deeper than any knife. "I don't need your approval," she had shouted, and in that moment I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I could still feel the sting of her rejection, the way it had curled around my heart like a vice grip. I had been trying to understand her, to reach for her in a way that felt genuine, but every attempt seemed to be met with resistance, like waves crashing against a rocky shore. My mind raced with a mixture of anger and betrayal. How had we arrived at this point? Was it my fault for not recognizing the signs earlier? I had been so focused on preserving our relationship, on keeping the peace, that I had neglected the growing distance between us. The quiet moments we once shared had transformed into a battleground of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could almost hear the mocking laughter of my relatives from the dinner table, a reminder of how far we had fallen from the family we once were. In a moment of impulsive frustration, I grabbed my notebook, the pages filled with my thoughts, my hopes, and my fears. I flicked through the pages, seeking that familiar comfort, but the words felt inadequate, unable to capture the depth of my turmoil. I had to confront Clara, that thought echoed in my mind like a mantra, but fear gnawed at me, whispering doubts that made my resolve waver. What if this confrontation only pushed her further away? What if I lost her entirely? I remembered the days when we would laugh together, sharing secrets and dreams beneath the stars. Those memories felt like a distant dream now, overshadowed by the reality of our strained relationship. A sudden wave of determination surged within me. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions any longer. I needed to address the injustice of Clara's betrayal, the way she had dismissed my feelings as if they were inconsequential. It was time to bring our issues to light, to tear down the walls that had been built brick by brick over the years. As I paced the room, the soft creak of the floorboards echoed beneath my feet, a rhythmic reminder of the urgency that was building inside me. I took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of lavender mingling with my anxiety. I could feel my heart racing, each beat a reminder of the confrontation that loomed ahead. I had to approach her, to peel back the layers of resentment and hurt that had taken root in our hearts. In that moment, I resolved to face Clara, to demand answers that had been left unspoken for too long. I would not allow this injustice to fester any longer. I would gather the courage to confront Clara, to express the pain of her betrayal, and to seek the truth behind her actions. The weight of my resolve settled upon me like a mantle, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite within. Maybe, just maybe, this confrontation could lead us back to the light, back to each other. The sun hung low in the sky as I sat on the worn wooden bench in the quiet park, its fading light casting long shadows that mirrored my own turmoil. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, yet I felt a chill creeping into my bones, a foreboding whisper of the confrontation that awaited me. I clutched my phone tightly, my knuckles turning white as I prepared to send Clara a message, a hesitant attempt to bridge the widening gap between us. "Can we talk?" I typed, my heart racing at the thought of her response. I could picture her reading the message, her brow furrowing in confusion or perhaps annoyance. My thumb hovered over the send button, a small act that felt monumental in the context of our fractured relationship. Memories of our happier times together flooded my mind, laughter shared over dinner, whispered secrets during late-night talks. How had we drifted so far apart? I sent the message and watched as the screen shifted to the 3 little dots indicating she was typing back. Each second felt like an eternity, my breath quickening with anticipation and dread. Finally, the response popped up. "Where?" The simplicity of her reply felt like a challenge, and I knew that the park, with its tranquil facade, would serve as the perfect backdrop for an emotional showdown. As I approached the designated meeting spot, I noticed Clara already sitting on another bench, her posture tense and defensive. She picked at the hem of her shirt, a habit I recognized as her way of coping with anxiety. The late afternoon sun illuminated her features, casting a golden glow around her, yet the light did little to soften the storm brewing in her eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, and forced myself to walk over. "Hey," I greeted, attempting to sound casual, but my voice cracked slightly, betraying my nerves. Clara looked up but didn't respond, her gaze flickering away as if she were searching for an escape route. I could feel the walls she had built around herself, impenetrable and fortified by our recent arguments. "I know things have been rough between us," I started, my voice low but steady. "I want to understand what you're feeling." I hoped my words would reach her, would crack the surface of her defensive armor. Clara remained silent, her jaw set tight, and the silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Please, Clara. It's important to me," I pressed on, my desperation creeping into my tone. "I don't want us to keep hurting each other." Her eyes met mine for a brief moment, and I saw a flicker of something. Was it vulnerability? Pain? Before she turned her gaze back to the ground. I don't know what to say," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The admission hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. I could see the turmoil etched on her face, and my heart ached at the sight. I wanted to reach out to comfort her, but the barrier between us felt insurmountable. "Start with how you've been feeling," I suggested gently, trying to coax her out of her shell. "I'm here to listen." But even as I said it, I felt a twinge of doubt. Would she truly open up, or was I merely digging deeper into the wounds that had already been inflicted? Clara's shoulders slumped, and she took a deep breath as if steeling herself. "Everything feels so messed up right now," she began, her voice trembling. "I just want to be myself, but it feels like I can't." I nodded, my heart racing as I realized the depth of her struggle. "I understand that," I replied, my tone earnest, "but shutting me out won't help. We can figure this out together." Her eyes flicked to mine, searching for sincerity, yet the walls still loomed high. I could feel my determination hardening. I wouldn't let this moment slip away without trying to break through. "I don't want to fight anymore," I added, the weight of my words sinking in. "Can't we just start fresh?" The desperation in my voice was palpable, and I braced myself for her reaction, hoping against hope that she would lower her defenses and let me in. The cafe hummed with soft chatter, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air, mingling with the sweet aroma of pastries. I sat at a small table near the window, fingers tapping nervously against the cool porcelain cup, the rhythm echoing my anxious thoughts. Clara had agreed to meet, a flicker of hope igniting within me, yet uncertainty gnawed at my insides. Would this be the moment we finally began to mend what had been broken? As I glanced around, the vibrant colors of the cafe's decor felt incongruent with my internal turmoil. The laughter of other patrons felt like a distant melody, a stark contrast to the silence that had stretched between Clara and me for far too long. Just then the bell above the door chimed, and my heart leapt as I saw Clara step inside. She looked hesitant, her gaze scanning the room before settling on me. "Hey," I greeted her, forcing a smile despite the flutter of anxiety in my stomach. She nodded, her expression unreadable, and took a seat across from me. The tension between us was palpable, a tightrope walk between hope and fear. I could see the remnants of hurt in her eyes, shadows of the pain I had caused. "Thanks for coming," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Clara shrugged, her fingers playing with the edge of the table, the movement betraying her discomfort. There was a long pause, the silence stretching out, heavy with unspoken words. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I had been dreading but also longing for. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us," I began, my heart racing. I watched as her eyes flickered momentarily toward mine before looking away. "I know I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry. I never wanted to push you away. I felt lost, and I took it out on you. I can't change the past, but I want to do better. I want to be better for you, for us." A flicker of something, was it hope, crossed her face, but it was quickly masked by uncertainty. "It's not that easy, Abigail. You can't just say sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. I need to know that you really mean it, that you understand how much your words hurt me," she replied, her voice steady, yet the tremor betrayed her vulnerability. "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness right away. I'm here willing to put in the work. I want us to talk, to really talk, without the barriers we've built between us. I miss you, Clara." "I miss us," I pleaded, my heart aching at the distance that felt insurmountable. For a moment, silence enveloped us again, the world outside continuing in a blur of color and life. I could see Clara's internal battle reflected in her eyes, the walls she had built slowly beginning to crack. Finally, she nodded slowly, a hesitant smile breaking through her uncertainty. "I miss us too, but it's going to take time, Abigail. We have to really work through this together," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As we sat there, the weight of unspoken burdens slowly lifted, and a sense of tentative hope began to blossom between us. It was far from a resolution, but it felt like the first step toward healing. The cafe, once filled with anxiety, felt warmer, the laughter around us blending into a comforting backdrop as we navigated the fragile path ahead. When we finally left, the sun shone brightly outside, illuminating our faces in a golden glow. I could feel Clara's presence beside me, a tangible reminder of the bond we were beginning to rebuild, and as we walked side by side, I knew this was just the beginning of a long journey toward reconciliation. In the days that followed, our conversations became more frequent, filled with both laughter and tears. I found myself reflecting on our journey, how far we had come and how much further we still had to go. I began to understand that healing was not a destination but a continuous process, and as we faced each challenge together, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, I caught Clara's gaze lingering on a family photo hanging on the wall, one that captured a moment of pure joy. It felt like a promise of what could be again, a future filled with laughter and connection. Perhaps, just perhaps, we could reclaim what we had lost, one day at a time. The atmosphere in the living room was electric, a palpable tension thick enough to slice through. Clara stood with her arms crossed, her face a mask of defiance, while I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, my heart pounding like a drum in the midst of an impending storm. The soft hum of the air conditioning did little to cool the friction crackling between us. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, each tick echoing my mounting anxiety. I had to confront her, but the words felt heavy on my tongue, as if they were made of lead. "Clara, we need to talk about what happened at the hospital," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady, though my hands trembled slightly at my sides. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing, and for a moment I saw a flicker of vulnerability behind her bravado. I took a breath, my chest tightening. "You can't keep shutting me out. I want to understand how you're feeling, but you need to meet me halfway. Understand, you think you can just waltz in here and act like everything's fine?" Clara's voice rose, a sharp edge cutting through the air. "You don't know what it's like to feel so alone, even in a room full of people who claim to care. You think your words don't hurt? You pushed me away when I needed you the most." Her eyes welled with tears, and my heart ached at the sight of her pain. I remembered the laughter we once shared, the warmth of our connection, now overshadowed by this chasm that threatened to swallow us whole. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Clara. I was scared and I didn't know how to express that without hurting you. I'm so tired of pretending everything's okay when it's not," I pleaded, my voice cracking under the weight of my emotions. I stepped closer, desperate to bridge the gap between us. "Please just tell me what you need from me." Her gaze shifted, the defiance softening as she struggled to find the words. I could see the conflict waging inside her, the battle between wanting to lash out and the yearning for connection. "I need you to stop acting like everything's fine when it's not. I need you to be real with me, to show up when I need you. You can't just push me aside and expect me to be okay with it." The realization struck me like a thunderbolt, igniting a flood of emotions I had been suppressing. I had been so focused on my own fears that I had failed to see how deeply Clara was hurting. The shock of her words, raw and unfiltered, shattered the walls I had built around my heart. In that moment, everything changed. I understood that I had to let go of my fears and be fully present for her, to embrace the chaos of our reality rather than hide from it. "I'm sorry, Clara. I should have been there for you. I promise to do better, to really listen. Can we try to move forward together?" I reached out, my hand trembling as it hovered between us, a silent offering of hope, ready to seize the moment and pave the way for healing. The tears in Clara's eyes glistened with a mixture of pain and longing, and I knew this was the pivotal moment that would determine the course of our relationship. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue across my bedroom as I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a sea of papers and remnants of my thoughts. The faint sound of my family's laughter drifted through the walls, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I could feel the rough texture of the carpet beneath my fingertips, grounding me as I wrestled with the emotions swirling within. I had spent the day stewing over Clara's betrayal, replaying her dismissive gestures and the hurtful words that had driven a wedge between us. It was time to take control of the situation and confront her, but I needed a plan. I flipped open my notebook, its pages filled with hasty scribbles and manic doodles that reflected my chaotic thoughts. Each word felt like a small step toward the confrontation I dreaded yet craved. My heart raced as I traced the lines of my notes, an outline of my intentions forming in my mind. The determination coursing through me was palpable. I wanted to reclaim the narrative of our relationship. I jotted down key points I needed to address, the things I wanted to say, and the emotions I wanted to convey. It was crucial that I expressed my hurt without pushing her further away. As I worked through my thoughts, I could feel the weight of the calendar on my desk, a reminder of the impending family gathering. The date was circled in red, and it loomed over me like a deadline. I needed to be ready to gather my courage and my words. The pressure was mounting, but I welcomed it. The urgency fueled my resolve. I envisioned the scene, Clara and I sitting across from each other. I could almost hear the silence stretching between us, thick and charged with potential. What would I say? How could I make her understand? My fingers brushed over the calendar, tracing the marks I had made. This was it, the moment I would confront her. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. I took a deep breath, allowing the determination to wash over me like a tide, erasing the fear that had threatened to drown me. I would not let this moment slip away without a fight. I would hold my ground, and I would not be reduced to silence. "This ends with me," I thought fiercely as I closed my notebook, a sense of purpose igniting within me that I had not felt in a long time. The living room felt charged, a palpable tension thickening the air as I faced Clara, her defensive stance mirroring the walls that had built up between us. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the floor, a stark contrast to the warmth I had once associated with this space. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my ears, a drum roll heralding the confrontation I had both anticipated and dreaded. "We need to talk, Clara," I began, my voice trembling yet resolute. The words felt like a boulder rolling down a hill, gaining momentum as they left my lips. Clara crossed her arms, her expression a mix of defiance and hurt. She had retreated into herself, a fortress of emotional armor that I desperately needed to breach. "About what happened at dinner, about us." her brow furrowed, and for a moment I saw the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, a brief chink in her armor. What more is there to say? You've already made your feelings clear. I'm just a burden to you. Her voice cracked, and I could sense the raw pain behind her words, each syllable a dagger aimed at my heart. Memories of laughter and shared secrets flooded my mind, a stark reminder of what we once had. No, Clara, that's not true. I took a step closer, my palms sweating as I fought to maintain my composure. I never meant to hurt you. I was scared and I lashed out. But you've shut me out and it's tearing me apart. My voice broke, a mix of frustration and desperation bubbling to the surface. I needed her to understand the depth of my feelings and the anguish I felt watching her withdraw. Clara's jaw tightened, but I could see her resolve wavering. You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted to feel like this? She gestured around the room, her hands trembling with pent-up emotion. The broken vase from our last argument lay on the floor, a physical representation of our shattered connection. It served as a reminder that nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. I know it's not easy, I shouted, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. The intensity of the moment threatened to engulf me, yet I pressed on. I've felt lost since that night. I want to be here for you, but you have to let me in. We can't keep pretending. The air crackled with the weight of my words, the truth hanging between us like a live wire. The silence that followed was deafening, a heavy blanket that suffocated any lingering hope. Clara's defenses crumbled, her expression shifting from anger to sorrow. I could see the tears pooling in her eyes, and it felt like a dam breaking. I don't know how to forgive you, Zoe. You hurt me, and I don't know if I can trust you again, she whispered, her voice barely audible. My heart sank, but I refused to back down. I'll prove it to you. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. Just give me a chance. The desperation in my voice was raw, a plea for understanding that felt like it could shatter at any moment. I stepped closer, my hands reaching out in a gesture of openness. Would she take my hand, or would she pull away once more? This moment felt like a precipice, and I could only hope that it would lead us back to each other, rather than further apart. Clara stared at me, her defenses wavering, and for a heartbeat I thought I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. But the tension remained, thick and unyielding, as we both stood on the brink of an emotional abyss, waiting for one of us to take the leap into the unknown. The quiet after the storm felt surreal, the tension that had once gripped our home now replaced by a cautious optimism. Clara and I sat in the living room, the soft light filtering through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room that had witnessed so much conflict. As I glanced at her, a tentative smile broke the surface of my worry, a flicker of hope igniting within me. I remembered the weight of our previous conversations, the barriers we had started to dismantle, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me like a gentle tide. Clara shifted in her seat, her fingers brushing against the fabric of the couch, an action that seemed to echo her own uncertainty. Zoe, I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed. I want to apologize for how I reacted before. I didn't mean to push you away, I was just scared, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. The sincerity in her tone made my heart swell, a mixture of warmth and gratitude flooding through me. It was a step forward, a sign that perhaps we could mend the rift that had threatened to tear us apart. I appreciate that, Mom, I really do, I replied, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. I've realized that I need to be more open with you, too. Our communication has been so fractured and I want to change that. We can work through this together. I felt a sense of determination rise within me, a resolve to not let our relationship slip away again. My hands trembled slightly as I spoke, the weight of our past still lingering but no longer suffocating. As Clara looked at me, a soft smile began to form on her lips, and I could see the tension in her shoulders ease just a bit. Maybe we can start fresh? I don't want to dwell on the past anymore. I want to focus on rebuilding our relationship, she suggested, her eyes glistening with a mix of hope and vulnerability. The sincerity in her gaze pierced through the remnants of our pain, and I felt a thrill of excitement at the possibility of a new beginning. I would love that, I affirmed, feeling as though a heavy weight had been lifted from my chest. In that moment, I knew we were both willing to put in the effort to heal. As we began to share our thoughts and feelings more openly, the air between us felt lighter, filled with the promise of understanding and connection. We were finally on the path to healing, and I could sense that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a golden glow on the family photo hanging on the wall, a snap